In the heart of Franklin, Tennessee, where rolling hills met quaint suburban streets, the Larson family reunion was a summer ritual as enduring as the cicadas' song. Held every July at the grand estate of Clara Larson, the family matriarch, it was a display of Southern pride. Barbecue smoke drifting through the air, fireflies dancing in the twilight, and the chatter of kin blending with the clink of sweet tea glasses. For Emily Harper, a 38-year-old single mother, the reunion was a bittersweet obligation, a day to endure rather than enjoy. Standing in Clara's manicured backyard in July 2025, her hands nervously smoothing her faded sundress, Emily felt the familiar sting of being the outsider in her own family. Emily had never fit the Larson mold. Divorced at 30, raising her 16-year-old daughter Ava on a high school English teacher's salary, she lived in a modest duplex on Franklin's quieter side, far from the wealth and status Clara revered. Her cousins, Lila, a corporate lawyer with a gleaming Nashville penthouse, and Greg, a tech entrepreneur whose startup was the talk of Silicon Valley, were the family's shining stars, their lives polished to a faultless sheen. Emily, with her second-hand Corolla and her thrift store wardrobe, was a shadow in their orbit, her presence tolerated but rarely celebrated. Her mother's remarriage to a Larson when Emily was a child had tethered her to this family, but it was a bond forged in obligation, not warmth. This year, the exclusion was unmistakable. Clara had seated Emily at the kids' table, a rickety folding table set apart from the main banquet, where Ava and a dozen younger cousins spilled lemonade, smeared barbecue sauce, and bickered over cornbread. The adults' table, draped in crisp white linen and adorned with crystal wine glasses, was reserved for the accomplished, Lila, Greg, their spouses, and a select few aunts and uncles who'd earned Clara's nod. Emily forced a smile as she sat among the chaos, her cheeks burning with humiliation, but she kept silent. Years of navigating Clara's disapproval had taught her that challenging the matriarch was like trying to hold back a Tennessee thunderstorm. Futile and messy, Ava, however, was not so resigned. With her dark curls bouncing and her green eyes flashing with defiance, she was a force of nature, quick-witted and unafraid. As Emily passed her a plate of potato salad, Ava leaned in, her voice a fierce whisper. "This is ridiculous, Mom. Why do you let Grandma treat you like this? You're worth 10 of them." Emily sighed, brushing a curl from Ava's face, her heart aching at her daughter's fire. "It's just one day, sweetheart. We'll get through it." Ava's eyes narrowed, a spark of rebellion igniting. "It's not just one day. It's every day they push you aside, and I'm done with it." Emily knew that look. It was the same one Ava had when she debated her history teacher about civil rights, or stayed up late writing songs that cut to the bone. Ava had always been her mother's defender, even as a child, asking pointed questions at family dinners that made Clara's smile tighten. The reunion unfolded with its usual pageantry, Clara holding court at the adults' table, her voice carrying over the lawn as she praised Lila's latest courtroom triumph, a high-profile merger case that made headlines, and Greg's startup, now valued at $50 million. Lila's laughter rang out, confident and sharp, while Greg showed off photos of his new office, all glass and steel. Clara beamed, her approval a currency they all craved, while Emily wiped barbecue sauce from a cousin's toddler's chin, her heart sinking with every burst of laughter from the main table. The afternoon brought the Larson Talent Show, a tradition where family members performed, singing, dancing, or in Greg's case, a self-aggrandizing PowerPoint about his company's growth. Emily usually stayed on the sidelines, clapping politely from the kids' table, her role as the family's invisible helper cemented. But Ava had signed up this year, her name scrawled in bold marker on the program. Emily's stomach knotted with worry. Ava was talented. Her guitar was her confidant, her songs raw and soulful. But the Larsons were a tough crowd, their praise reserved for those who fit their mold of success. As Ava's turn approached, Emily's hands clenched in her lap, her heart pounding. Ava stepped onto the makeshift stage, a wooden platform under Clara's ancient oak tree, her guitar slung over her shoulder, the microphone glinting in the afternoon sun. The crowd quieted, more curious than expectant, their eyes skeptical. Ava strummed a chord, her voice clear and unwavering, and began to sing. The song wasn't just a performance. It was a story, raw and unfiltered, about a woman who'd given everything for her child, who'd faced judgment but never broke. It was about Emily, and it was about to shake the Larson family to its core. Clara Larson's estate was a monument to her legacy, its sprawling lawn and wraparound porch a testament to the wealth her late husband, a real estate magnate, had built in Franklin's booming years. The house, with its white columns and rose gardens, was a symbol of the Larson name, polished, unyielding, and steeped in tradition. Emily had grown up in its shadow, her mother's remarriage to a Larson when she was 6, tying her to a family that never fully embraced her. Clara, with her pearl earrings and impeccable posture, had made it clear early on that Emily's choices, studying education instead of law, marrying a man who left her after 5 years, raising Ava alone on a teacher's salary, were failures in her eyes. The kids' table was just the latest in a long line of slights, a public reminder that Emily didn't measure up. As Ava took the stage, Emily's mind drifted to those slights. The Christmas when Clara gifted Lila a diamond bracelet and Emily a used cookbook with dog-eared pages. The family vacation to Napa Valley, where Emily was tasked with babysitting while the adults went wine tasting. The countless dinners where Clara's praise skipped over her to land on Lila's legal victories or Greg's tech triumphs. Emily had swallowed her pride each time, telling herself it was for Ava's sake, to keep her connected to the family. But Ava had never accepted it. Even as a child, she'd challenged Clara's barbs, once asking at a Thanksgiving dinner why Grandma never hugged Mom. Clara had laughed it off, but Emily saw the fire in Ava's eyes, a fire now blazing as she sang. Ava's song began softly, her fingers coaxing a haunting melody from her guitar, the notes drifting over the backyard like a gentle breeze. The lyrics were a blade, cutting through the reunion's polished veneer. She sang of a woman who graded papers by lamplight, who worked weekend shifts at a diner to pay for music lessons, who loved her daughter fiercely despite a family that looked past her. Each word was a brushstroke, painting Emily's life in vivid detail. The sleepless nights after her divorce, the second job to cover Ava's guitar strings and sheet music, the quiet pride of watching her daughter grow into a force of her own. The backyard fell silent, the clink of glasses and chatter of cousins fading into the background. Emily's throat tightened, tears pricking her eyes as she realized Ava had seen it all. Every sacrifice, every silent hurt. She hadn't known Ava was writing this song, hadn't realized how deeply her daughter understood her struggles. The kids at the table stopped fidgeting, their wide eyes fixed on Ava, their juice-stained hands still. Even the adults' table froze, Clara's wine glass hovering midair, Lila's smile faltering, Greg's phone forgotten in his hand. Ava's voice grew bolder, her chorus a defiant anthem. She's not your shadow, she's the light you never see. The words hit like a thunderclap, exposing the family's unspoken hierarchy. Clara's favoritism, the cousin's dismissal, the years of Emily being relegated to the margins. Emily felt exposed, but not ashamed. Proud, almost, that Ava saw her this way. The song ended with a final, lingering chord, and for a moment, the silence was deafening. Then the kids' table erupted, Ava's cousins clapping and cheering, their voices breaking the spell. Emily stood, her hands trembling, and pulled Ava into a hug as she stepped off the stage. "That was incredible, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ava grinned, but her eyes flicked to Clara, who sat stone-faced, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm not done yet, Mom," Ava said, her tone fierce but steady. The talent show continued, but the air had shifted. Lila's tap-dancing daughter and Greg's predictable slideshow felt flat, overshadowed by Ava's raw honesty. Emily caught snippets of conversation as she helped with cleanup. "That girl's got guts. Clara's not gonna like this. Emily deserves better." The kids' table, once a place of exile, was now a hub of whispers, Ava's cousins crowding around her, asking about her guitar, her lyrics, her courage. That night, under the glow of fireflies, Emily and Ava sat on the estate's porch swing, the hum of crickets filling the silence. "You didn't have to do that," Emily said, her voice soft but full of gratitude. "But I'm so proud you did." Ava leaned against her, her guitar resting nearby. "You deserve to be seen, Mom, and I'm gonna make sure they see you." Emily squeezed her daughter's hand, her heart full but heavy with the weight of what was to come. Ava's song had lit a fuse, and the explosion was inevitable. The morning after Ava's performance, the Larson estate was a tinderbox waiting for a spark. Breakfast was served on the patio, a lavish spread of biscuits, sausage gravy, fresh peaches, and pecan pralines. But the mood was anything but festive. Emily noticed the sidelong glances from her cousins, the hushed conversations that stopped when she approached. Clara, seated at the head of the table in a crisp linen dress, was quieter than usual, her fork picking at a slice of melon, her eyes distant. Ava, unbothered, piled her plate with bacon and chatted with her younger cousins, her laughter a bright note in the tension, her presence a reminder of the previous day's upheaval. Emily felt like she was walking a tightrope. Ava's song had been a public challenge, a spotlight on the family's unspoken rules, Clara's favoritism, the cousins' dismissal, the kids' table as a symbol of exclusion. Emily had always avoided confrontation, swallowing her pride, to keep the peace, telling herself it was for Ava's sake. But Ava's defiance had rewritten the script, turning the kids' table into a rebellion's headquarters, with Ava as its fearless leader. The day's activities were a welcome distraction. Family, games that filled the estate's sprawling lawn with laughter and competition. Croquet mallets clacked, cornhole bags thumped, and a scavenger hunt sent the kids racing through the rose garden and around the old well. Emily volunteered to organize the hunt, a role Clara had always thrust upon her, but Ava insisted on helping. They spent the morning hiding clues, scraps of paper tucked under flower pots, behind tree trunks, and in the crevices of the estate's stone walls. The kids ran wild, their squeals echoing, their energy a stark contrast to the adults' strained small talk. During a break, Lila approached Emily near the garden, her designer sunglasses perched on her head, her lips pursed in a familiar mix of irritation and superiority. "Your daughter's got quite a mouth on her," she said, her tone sharp. "That song was bold. Maybe too bold for a family event." Emily's stomach twisted, her instinct to apologize warring with anew, resolve sparked by Ava's courage. "She was telling the truth," she said, meeting Lila's gaze, her voice steadier than she felt. "Maybe it's time we all heard it." Lila's eyebrow arched, her composure slipping for a moment before she turned away, her heels clicking, on the stone path. Emily's heart raced. She'd never spoken to Lila like that, never pushed back against the family's golden child. Ava's song had ignited something in her, a spark of courage she hadn't known she possessed. The real reckoning came during the evening's family meeting, a Larson tradition held in the estate's living room, its walls lined with family portraits, and Clara's collection of antique clocks, their ticks a steady undercurrent to the tension. Emily was usually excluded, left to mind the kids while the adults discussed family matters, but Ava insisted she attend. "You're a Larson too, Mom," she said, her voice firm, her green eyes unwavering. Emily sat at the room's edge, her hands folded in her lap, her nerves jangling like loose change. Clara began, her voice measured, praising Lila's latest case, a merger that made national news, and Greg's startup, now attracting investors from California to New York. Then she turned to Emily, her smile thin, her tone laced with condescension. Emily, you've done well with the children, as always, but perhaps next year you could contribute something more significant to our family's legacy." The room went quiet, the air thick with expectation. Emily felt the familiar sting, the weight of years of being overlooked. But before she could respond, Ava stood, her chair scraping against the hardwood. "Can I say something?" she asked, not waiting for permission, her voice cutting through the silence. Clara's eyes narrowed, her fingers tightening around her glass, but she nodded. Ava stepped forward, her presence commanding the room, her dark curls catching the chandelier's light. "Mom's raised me alone, worked 2 jobs, sacrificed everything to give me a good life. She's not less than anyone here. She's the strongest person I know, and if you can't see that, Grandma, you're the one missing out." The room froze. Lila gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Greg shifted uncomfortably, his eyes darting to Clara. The matriarch's face, flushed with rare shock, her composure cracking. Emily's heart pounded, torn between pride and fear. Ava had just thrown a grenade into the Larson legacy, and the fallout would reshape their family forever. The aftermath of Ava's speech was like a storm breaking over Franklin, its ripples spreading through the Larson estate and beyond. The family meeting ended abruptly, Clara dismissing everyone with a curt wave. Her composure rattled for the first time Emily could remember. Emily and Ava retreated to their guest room, the silence between them heavy but charged with solidarity. Emily was still reeling from Ava's words, the way her daughter had stood up to Clara without flinching. It was a courage Emily had never mustered, and it both awed and unsettled her, stirring memories of her own quiet battles to belong. The next morning, the reunion continued, but the atmosphere was fractured. Some cousins avoided Emily, their loyalty to Clara unshaken, their whispers sharp as they passed the kids' table. Others, particularly the younger ones, teenagers and preteens who idolized Ava's boldness, gravitated toward her, drawn to her fire. The kids' table became a hub of activity, with Ava's cousins crowding around her, asking about her song, her guitar, her defiance. Emily watched, her heart swelling as Ava answered with confidence, her laughter cutting through the tension, like a blade through silk. Clara, however, was not one to let a challenge go unanswered. During the afternoon's barbecue, as ribs sizzled and sweet tea flowed, she pulled Emily aside near the rose garden, her voice low but sharp as a switch. "Your daughter's outburst was disrespectful, Emily. I expect you to control her. This family has standards." Emily's stomach knotted, her instinct to placate warring with the fire Ava had kindled. She thought of the song, the speech, the way Ava saw her, not as a failure, but as a hero. "Ava spoke her truth, Clara," she said, her voice trembling, but firm. "Maybe it's time we all started speaking ours." Clara's eyes widened, unaccustomed to defiance from Emily, the quiet one who'd always played her role. She turned away without a word, her heels sinking into the soft grass, her silence louder than any reprimand. Emily felt a spark of victory, small but undeniable. For the first time, she'd stood her ground, and it felt like breaking free from a cage she'd lived in for decades. The day's events culminated in the family photo, a Larson tradition that captured the clan in its curated glory. Clara orchestrated the setup with military precision, placing Lila and Greg at the center, their spouses and children fanned out around them, their smiles practiced and perfect. Emily and Ava were positioned at the edge, as always, their faces barely visible in the frame, their presence an afterthought. But Ava refused to comply. She grabbed Emily's hand and pulled her to the center, standing tall as the photographer snapped the shot. The kids' table cousins cheered, their voices a chorus of support, their applause drowning out Lila's muttered complaint. "That's more like it," Ava whispered, squeezing Emily's hand, her grin fierce. The gesture was small, but it felt like a revolution, a rewriting of the family's unspoken rules. That evening, as the reunion wound down, Emily overheard Lila and Greg talking near the porch, their voices low but audible. "She's got a point," Greg said, his tone thoughtful, a rare crack in his usual arrogance. "Emily's done more with less than any of us. We've been too hard on her, following Clara's lead." Lila scoffed, her voice sharp but less certain. "Clara won't like that. You know how she is." The words lingered with Emily as she packed their bags, the hum of the estate fading into the night. Ava's actions had cracked the family's polished facade, forcing them to question their assumptions, their hierarchy, their blindness to Emily's worth. It wasn't a full victory. Clara's influence was a deep-rooted oak, not easily felled, but it was a start. As they drove back to their duplex, the Tennessee hills rolling past under a starlit sky, Ava turned to Emily, her eyes bright with determination. "We're not done, Mom," she said. "They're gonna see you for who you are." Emily smiled, her heart lighter than it had been in years, the weight of the kids' table lifting. "I think they're starting to, sweetheart." The weeks following the reunion were a whirlwind, the echoes of Ava's song and speech reverberating through Franklin. Emily returned to her job at Franklin High School, teaching English to teenagers who'd rather scroll TikTok than analyze, To Kill a Mockingbird. But she carried Ava's courage with her, a quiet strength that made her stand taller in the classroom, her voice firmer during faculty meetings. The kids' table, once a symbol of her exclusion, now felt like a badge of resilience, a reminder that she and Ava had shaken the Larson family's foundations. Ava, meanwhile, was thriving. Her song had gone viral online after a cousin posted a video to Instagram, racking up tens of thousands of views and comments ranging from "This girl's voice is fire" to "Why air family drama like that?" Ava shrugged off the criticism, her focus on writing new music, her guitar a constant companion. She practiced in their duplex, cramped living room, her melodies filling the space where Emily graded papers late into the night. Emily was always her first audience, nodding, along her heart swelling with pride. Back in Franklin, the Larson family was grappling with the fallout. Clara doubled down, hosting private dinners for Lila and Greg, pointedly excluding Emily, her way of reasserting control. But cracks were forming in the family's armor. Greg reached out, asking Emily to coffee at a cozy cafe on Main Street, its walls lined with local art. Over steaming lattes, he admitted Ava's speech had hit him hard, forcing him to see Emily in a new light. "I never realized how much you've been carrying," he said, his usual arrogance softened, his eyes meeting hers with rare sincerity. "You've done right by Ava, Em. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Emily was stunned. Her coffee cup paused midair, her throat tight. "Thanks, Greg. Just don't count me out anymore." The real surprise came when Clara called, her voice clipped but lacking its usual edge. She invited Emily and Ava to a smaller family gathering, a makeup dinner to smooth things over. Emily was skeptical, her years of slights making her wary, but Ava insisted they go. "We've got their attention, Mom," she said, her green eyes blazing. "Let's keep it." The dinner was held in Clara's dining room, its crystal chandelier casting a warm glow over the mahogany table, the air heavy with the scent of rosemary and roasted chicken. Lila was cool, her smiles forced, her designer dress a stark contrast to Emily's simple blouse. Greg was warmer, asking Ava about her music, even joking about her viral video. Clara, the wild card, was quiet for most of the meal, her eyes studying, Emily and Ava with an intensity that made Emily's skin prickle. Midway through, Clara raised her glass, her gaze steady, her voice measured. "I've underestimated you, Emily," she said, her tone lacking its usual condescension. "Ava's song. It made me think. You've raised a remarkable daughter, and that's no small thing." Emily's breath caught, her heart pounding. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest Clara had ever come. Ava squeezed her hand under the table, her grin triumphant, her eyes saying, "We did this." The rest of the dinner passed in relative peace, a fragile truce in the Larson War, the clink of silverware and soft laughter, a tentative step toward healing. Back home, Emily and Ava talked late into the night, the duplex quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the floorboards. Ava revealed she'd been writing a new song, one about family and forgiveness, inspired by the reunion's upheaval. "It's not just about us," she said, her voice earnest. "It's about everyone who's ever felt pushed aside, told they're not enough." Emily nodded, her eyes misty, her heart full. Ava's music was becoming a voice for the overlooked, a call to stand up and be seen. The kids' table was no longer a punishment. It was a platform, a starting point for a new chapter in their story. As summer faded into fall, Franklin's trees turned gold and crimson, and Emily and Ava settled into a new rhythm. Emily took on extra tutoring to save for Ava's college, her confidence growing with each small victory. She started speaking up at faculty meetings, proposing new reading programs that earned nods from colleagues who'd once overlooked her. Her classroom became a haven, her lessons infused with a passion that mirrored Ava's fire. The kids' table, once a symbol of exclusion, was now a memory she carried with pride, a reminder of how far they'd come. Ava's music was gaining traction, her gigs at Franklin's coffee shops and open mic nights drawing crowds of locals and students. Her songs, raw and honest, resonated with audiences, their lyrics weaving stories of struggle and triumph. Emily was always in the front row, cheering louder than anyone, her heart swelling as Ava's voice filled the room. The viral video from the reunion had sparked interest from a small Nashville label, and Ava was fielding calls about recording, her dreams inching closer to reality. The Larson family was evolving too. Greg began inviting Emily to family events, not as an afterthought, but as an equal, asking her opinion on everything from holiday menus to Clara's upcoming 80th birthday celebration. Lila was slower to warm, her pride still bruised by Ava's challenge, but even she softened, complimenting Ava's performance at a local music festival, her words careful but genuine. Clara remained a force, her approval hard-won, but she started including Emily in family decisions, asking her to help plan the next reunion, a first in decades that made Emily's chest tighten with cautious hope. One crisp October evening, Ava performed at a community fundraiser in Franklin's town square, her guitar and voice filling the night air. The square was alive with string lights and the smell of kettle corn, families gathered on blankets, their faces turned toward Ava. Her new song, about family and second chances, wove together the pain of the kids' table and the hope of reconciliation, its chorus bringing the crowd to its feet, their applause echoing off the brick storefronts. Clara was there, seated near the front in a folding chair, her expression unreadable but her applause genuine, her hands clapping longer than Emily expected. After the show, Clara approached Emily, her eyes softer than Emily had ever seen, her usual formality softened by the night's warmth. "You've done well, Emily," she said, her voice steady. "I was wrong to push you aside for so long." Emily's heart swelled, but she kept her composure, her voice calm. "Thank you, Clara. But it's Ava who showed us all." Clara nodded, a rare smile breaking through, her eyes glinting with something like pride. "She's a Larson through and through." The moment wasn't perfect. Years of hurt couldn't be erased in one night. But it was progress, a step toward a family that saw Emily and Ava for who they were. They drove home under a starlit sky, the weight of the kids' table lifting, replaced by a sense of belonging they'd fought for and won. Winter settled over Franklin, the air sharp with the promise of snow, the town square twinkling with Christmas lights. Emily and Ava had carved out a new place in the Larson family, their presence no longer an afterthought but a vital thread in the clan's tapestry. Emily joined the planning committee for the next reunion, her ideas for inclusive activities, games for all ages, a talent show open to everyone. welcomed alongside Lila's and Greg's. Ava's music continued to grow, her songs streaming on Spotify, reaching listeners from Nashville to New York. The kids' table was no longer a symbol of exclusion. It was a reminder of where their fight began, a testament to their resilience and love. One snowy December night, Ava performed at the VFW Hall, a fundraiser for local veterans that packed the room with families, veterans, and curious locals. Emily watched from the crowd, her heart full as Ava dedicated her set to the woman who taught me to stand tall, my mom. The song wove together her first hit from the reunion and her new work, a story of resilience, family, and love that brought tears to the audience's eyes. Clara was in the back, her coat dusted with snow, clapping along, her eyes bright with pride, her usual reserve softened by the music's power. After the show, Emily and Ava stood outside, snowflakes catching in their hair, the cold biting, but their hearts warm. "You changed everything," Emily said, pulling Ava into a hug, her voice thick with emotion. Ava laughed, her breath visible in the cold, her green eyes sparkling. "We changed it together, Mom. The Larson family wasn't perfect. Old habits lingered, and Clara's approval could still be sharp-edged, her expectations a heavy weight. But it was evolving, its hierarchy softening, its heart opening to include those it had once overlooked. Emily was no longer the invisible daughter, the one relegated to the kids' table. She was a mother, a teacher, a woman who'd found her voice. Ava was a beacon, her music a call to others to stand up, to be seen, to rewrite their own stories. The kids' table had become a story of triumph, a reminder that courage and love could reshape even the most stubborn legacies. Emily and Ava had fought for their place, not just in the family, but in their own hearts, proving that worth isn't measured by wealth or status, but by the strength to keep going, to love fiercely, to speak truth. To you, reading this story, Emily and Ava's journey is a testament to the power of standing up, speaking out, and refusing to be sidelined. If their story moved you, consider supporting our channel. Your support keeps these stories alive, shining a light on those who rise above the odds, who turn the kids' table into a throne. Visit our page, share your thoughts, and join us in telling the tales that matter.